Teachers of Reddit, what the worst thing that happened on a school trip? My boyfriend was a teacher and his students went on the annual DC trip. It was like 2 kids to each hotel room or something, and there was 2 14-year-old boys that shared a room. One of the boys jacked off into a pillow and then hit the other kid in the face with the cum pillow. Very similar story. DC trip. A kid dropped a deuce in the bathtub and came on the window. Yes. The same kid. Less of a story and more of a fact. Gotta love 8th graders. Ask my students to be respectful of other pedestrians while on the trip. Because some people want to enjoy the nature center by themselves. One kid saw a woman with her service dog and tried to pull on it because mommy would let me have it. We had to leave because of that, and he ruined the entire trip for everyone. Kids were going to a conference for a leadership service-oriented club. They got brought home early because a chaperone found an orgy in one of the rooms that had been pre-planned in a group chat that almost all of the kids on the trip were in. That was a storm. How old were they? Damn, they had a whole orgy. High schoolers. There were about 5 of them. We went skating. And one of the students fell. Smacked her chin off the ice. And somehow got a skate blade to the face. She needed a bunch of stitches. And was able to stick her tongue through the hole in her face. I was a new teacher when the whole grade went on a field trip during the first week of school. In fact, I was so new that nobody, not even my colleagues, noticed that I wasn't on the bus. So it left without me. Fortunately, the destination was only about 15 minutes away. So it wasn't a big deal for me to jump in my car and follow the bus there. Probably could have went for coffee and said you were there the whole time. Could have just not gone and said nobody noticed you were there. I took 3 classes of 6th graders, age 11-12, to visit the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. We'd come from about an hour and a half away, the kids and other teachers on buses. But since I was hugely pregnant, I was allowed to drive my own car. It had been raining. But I arrived a bit ahead of the bus. So when the kids got off, I was there to lead them to the museum. As I began walking towards the kids getting off the buses, I noticed a lot of papers on the sidewalk, and suddenly realized that there were an assortment of extremely pornographic pictures. I stopped to try to gather them up before the kids got an unexpected and completely inappropriate sex ed lesson. We'd already had a big talk about being mature when viewing classical art, for example. Nude statues. OMG, but we were not prepared for the most lurid porn LA had to offer. Unfortunately, the rain had plastered the papers to the sidewalk. And the sight of the very pregnant teacher scrambling on hands and knees on wheelchair BLVD sent the chaperones and teachers rushing to my aid, with 100 kids right after them. No matter how urgently I tried to wave them back, it was memorable. The student I was left behind at a Hutterite colony. I went to use the outhouse and the bus left. I went on a class trip as chaperone to a science center. I was in charge of a group of 8 boys. One of them goes missing. I ask the others where he went. And they don't know either. He's missing for about 10 minutes until a security guard from the center comes up to me with him. The guy asks, "Is he one of yours?" And tells this kid to open his backpack when I say yes. Probably $200 worth of stolen stuff in there. He spent the rest of the trip right next to me. I am a teacher, but my anecdote comes from when I was a kid back in the mid-90s. We were visiting some museum in London and were traveling on the train and the tube with teachers. On the way back, some students didn't get on the tube before the automatic doors shut, and the teacher in charge just yelled as loud as he could, "See you back at school, lads." And we just went home, and the teacher waited at the school later on, and sure enough, about 40 minutes after everyone else got back, the remaining kids turned up. If that happened to me now as a teacher in 2019, I'd be fired. Probably out of a cannon into an abyss marked RIP career. You know how it goes. 2 or 3 go missing and suddenly you're irresponsible and criminally liable. I don't know why anyone would get into the profession. The first time I went on a field trip with my youth group kids, we went to an indoor rock climbing place and one of the kids hid in the boys' bathroom, and since all the teachers were girls we had no idea where he was for a solid 20 minutes. Finally a staff member at the place used the bathroom and brought my missing kid out and said, "Is the one you're missing?" The kid thought it was ducking hilarious, but I was 2 seconds away from calling the police. When I was in the AmeriCorps, I was a tutor at a school where a popular 7th grader drowned on the class's end of the year field trip to a lake at a state park the summer before I started. There were no lifeguards on duty. He was in chest deep water when he went under in the lake and never came up. His friends and the chaperones tried to find him, but by the time they did, it was too late. This was an underserved school in a really rough neighborhood. According to the teachers, things were getting better at the school, but this really ducked with the kids. It was a very challenging year for them. One of my daughter's friends had a schoolmate drown while on a college school trip to local river. She had been a lifeguard throughout high school and the episode ducked her up for a long time. It happened right before we would enter the bus. My students had been waiting for a few minutes and some guys were messing around. I warned them to act normal but left them out of my sight for 1 minute to grab something from my post box. In that time they pressed the fire alarm. The whole school, 1,650 students, had to be evacuated to the car park where the bus also waited. It was not my favorite morning. A girl on a beta club trip thought it would be funny to put bomb on board in the window of the bus. The interstate was shut down. The bus was pulled over and SWAT team raided the bus. The bomb squad was called in to sweep the bus even though the girl admitted it was a hoax. She didn't go to jail somehow. She was also a popular cheerleader and didn't get any disciplinary action from the school. I'm an English teacher and career and field trips are different here. Usually, there are no additional chaperones. The teacher is responsible for all 25-ish students in their homeroom class during the trip. That means a field trip is often 8 classes of 25 students, 200 kids, and a maximum of 10 chaperones if some office staff get taken along. One of my first trips was to a large traditional market. It's a popular place to go and there are usually thousands of people there at all times. Our buses arrived and we all piled off in the parking lot. The kids were told via megaphone, "Be back here in 1 hour. Go." And all 200 of them scattered into the crowds and tents while most of the teachers got back onto the buses to have coffee. Surprisingly, 99% of the kids were back on the buses when they were supposed to be. However, a good number had board small hamsters, turtles, or goldfish. 2 weeks later I couldn't find a single kid whose spontaneous pet was still alive.